Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Thank you very much for joining this webinar. We are pleased to be able to present to you today. I know that there are other attendees that will be joining, but we will get started as we are just about on time. I'm Jason Dean, Director of Client Enablement here at Signant Health, and it's my pleasure to introduce our topic today. We go back one slide, which is overcoming the challenges of an outsourced and non-digital clinical supply chain. Thank you for your presence today reflects not only the importance of the topic we're discussing, but also your commitment to improving material management in an increasingly complex clinical supply chain environment. Clinical supply chains are inherently complex, involving the coordination of multiple stakeholders, including manufacturers, CROs, logistics providers, and of course, clinical sites. Outsourcing these and managing vendor relationships can be challenging. We are here today to provide you with an opportunity to gain perspectives, to overcome these challenges and see how systems that are purpose-built for clinical supplies can help organizations contribute to the success of their trials. Next slide, please. As mentioned, I'm Jason Dean, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Andy Hinks and Vanessa Wickett. Andy is a senior clinical supply chain consultant. He brings with him 18 years industry experience in clinical services organizations and has been a forecasting and planning systems expert here at Signant Health for the past 5 years. Vanessa is also a senior clinical supply chain consultant and brings 18 years experience in clinical services organizations as well. She is our resident inventory management systems expert, going on 9 years now with Signant Health. Today, Andy will share his insight into overcoming challenges in forecasting and planning, and later Vanessa will share with us her insight into overcoming challenges in inventory management. Next slide, please. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping items. We'd very much like for you to participate in the polls. We have a couple of them today, coming after each of the 2 content sections. It's a great way to get immediate feedback and see how your colleagues in the industry respond to our key topics. You can access the poll now, in fact, by scanning the QR code or using the URL on the slide here, pollev.com/signant866. That's PollEV for poll everywhere, Signant H, just the H for health, and 866. All one word in a browser, and that barcode and URL will also be on the poll slide when we come to it. So if you don't have time to get to it now, you can do so later and will be provided. So, secondly, please also ask questions. While we won't have any live in-session stops, we will be collecting your questions and we will have time at the end for Q&A. At the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A icon like the one on the screen here. Please feel free to submit your questions throughout the session, and we will aim to get to as many questions as we can at the end. And then finally, it always helps us with these events to improve them, as you could be so kind to answer the short survey at the end. We'd like to hear your feedback on this event, so thank you. So as we move to the next slide, the agenda that we will cover will be in 3 parts, where I will be covering a brief overview of the supplies history here at Signant Health, including the clinical trial solutions. I've been fortunate enough to have been a part of that journey for over the past 18 years of my career. And then Andy will dive into the challenges and best practices in forecasting and planning for clinical trials. And finally, Vanessa will cover the inventory management in clinical trials and explain how we can help you overcome common obstacles in this area, and then wrapping up with a Q&A section. Next slide. So let's start by talking about the journey that has brought us to where we are today. Our suite of applications was originally developed by a company called ClinApps in 2004 and became commercially available to our customers in 2006. It quickly gained traction among top pharmaceutical companies, initially focusing on forecasting, but also rapidly expanded to include inventory management, electronic batch records, and warehouse management, along with mobile device support. After being acquired by Bracket in 2016, we further integrated our systems to provide comprehensive solutions that included RTSM and IRT services. This integration allows us to offer a seamless end-to-end clinical supply chain management solution. And 6 years ago, we took a critical step by migrating our software from servers to the cloud, a move that enhanced scalability, security, and accessibility to our customers. This journey reflects our commitment to evolving with the needs of our customers and ensuring that our software doesn't just meet their requirements, but enhances their decision-making and operational efficiency across all the phases of clinical trials. Next slide, please. While today's focus is on clinical supply chain solutions, it's important to highlight Signant Health's offers a lot more, with a quick introduction to a few of those services for perhaps anyone who isn't familiar with our solutions. We are a technology company and a service company. We've had 20 plus years of experience in producing high quality clinical evidence for submission clinical trials. We have within our expertise, we have operational experts, but also clinical, scientific, and regulatory experts that help us to navigate the best solutions and best designs for our customers. So we have a combination of evidence generation, medication management, and IP delivery, and other study enablement technologies that we bring together to provide solutions and services to our customers. For clinical data collection, we have things like patient-reported outcomes, but also the more complex clinician ratings that you might do and associated services around rater training and qualification, central rating and consulting, etc. We also have an EDC solution to collect clinical data and sensors and wearables that we're able to connect to as well. And then our enabling solutions, so things like patient engagements, are components within our eCOA solutions that enable us to interact better with patients and provide them with reminders and visit information as they progress through a trial. We have e-consent solutions that we're able to use video with telemedicine and do virtual monitoring. So our unified platform helps organizations overcome challenges, stay compliant, and streamline operations, ensuring that your clinical trials run smoothly from start to finish. So we have partner services. These help with home health, so home nurse visits through partners, and also courier logistics for direct-to-patient medication supplies. Our IP management side, we have randomization of trial supply management solution, or RTSM, and of course, the supplies enterprise solutions that we'll cover a bit of today. Next slide, please. Customer partners. As you can see from this slide, we've had the privilege of partnering with a wide range of organizations across the pharmaceutical and biotech industries. Working with these diverse organizations has allowed us to tackle complexities of clinical trials and pioneer solutions that drive digital transformation. We've moved many customers away from online or fragmented systems towards integrated and digitalized processes, enabling more data-driven decisions and greater compliance in an outsourced supply chain landscape. And this brings us to the next section of our webinar, Next slide, I'm going to hand it over to Andy, who will get us into the challenges and best practices around forecasting and planning for the clinical trials. So Andy, over to you.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for the kind introduction, and hello, everyone. Appreciate your time today joining our webinar. As Jason has said, I'm going to start out by talking about the challenges that we see from our customers as they move to our services, specifically regarding their forecasting and planning activities. So next slide, please. This is a journey that we've taken many customers through and continue to do so to this day. It's also a journey that I've been through myself personally in my professional career as prior to working for Signant Health and assisting various customer organizations, some of which Jason has just shared with you, with digitizing their supply chain activities. I've also worked effectively at the coalface, doing forecasting and supply planning in a non-digitized way, and have seen these challenges firsthand. So I don't want to simply read through a slide, but really what we're talking about is consistency, standardization not being there. Spreadsheet use, very, very common for our customers to be doing their forecasting activities in disparate spreadsheets. Again, often non-standard, inconsistent across teams, especially widespread teams. That then leads to lack of visibility, SLT level, being able to really visualize what's happening right down to a trial level is tricky to the extent of being virtually impossible in a non-digitized landscape. Those trials being forecasted and planned in isolation makes it extremely tricky to aggregate demands where you've got multiple trials or programs using standard components. So if you do have pooled primary or even comparator components for which there's common demand across multiple trials or programs, perhaps those are being forecasted in separate spreadsheets for each trial. The process of then aggregating those demands together, it's very manual, copy paste into maybe a master spreadsheet, error prone, of course, which in our industry is dangerous. Once you have inventory of those items and you then wish to allocate it out to the individual demands, again, if those demands are being forecasted for in separate legacy systems, spreadsheets, many of our customer companies are made up of mergers and acquisitions, very common in our industry, of course. They may have separate legacy systems in different parts of the business that require allocations from the same pool of inventory. Very manual, very error prone. Next slide, please. A few additional challenges. The strength of our forecasting and supply planning processes often rely on the access to current up-to-date data. So having that data available as part of your forecasting process, again, extremely tricky in a non-digitized landscape. If you want your forecasts to take into account, for example, your current subject recruitment position, what subjects do we have currently in our trial, in each country, in each cohort and treatment group, how's that getting reflected in our forecast without having to, perhaps look at IRT reports, put the data manually into your forecasting spreadsheets so that future supply planning activities are availed of that information. Same with your inventory. Of course, you don't want your forecast simply to say how much you need. It needs to know how much you have from an inventory perspective so that it's the unmet demand moving forward that's fed into your supply planning activities. But if you've got demands for common items in multiple spreadsheets or multiple legacy systems, offline systems, perhaps, very tricky to achieve. Certainly a manual process, which adds risk, adds delays. These aren't in any particular order, so don't want to downplay the overages piece. Of course, very, very hot topic in forecasting and supply planning. And what we see very, very often as we go through this digitization journey with customers is the risks of effectively running out of inventory through their supply chains at each level are mitigated with big reliance on overages. So what we look to do, and we'll talk about this in subsequent slides, is reduce that reliance on overages through digitization and visibility. Scenario analysis is a big piece that facilitates that, but again, without a system that provides functionality in that area, it's very, very manual and it's very, very time consuming to achieve. Next slide, please. So this brings us to the first of our polls, and Jason explained the process there earlier, but I'll just bring to your attention the fact there's a QR code on screen which you can scan with a mobile device, or there's a URL there which you can go directly into a browser. They're at the top of the screen now. And we would invite you to identify which of the challenges that we've just discussed, or I've just discussed, apply specifically to your organization. Maybe that more than one are particular challenges to you, and that's what brings you to this webinar today. You've got a particular interest in how we will look to resolve these particular challenges for you, which we'll go on to discuss in subsequent slides. That's interesting, and thank you for your participation. I didn't attempt to second guess what this feedback might be. Typically, we see most of these challenges apply, but it's interesting that perhaps the trial data is of less concern for the individuals voting. But certainly the big ticket items, manual, error-prone spreadsheets, and how time-consuming that is, including the scenario analysis piece. It's very interesting to see that feedback, and thank you. So with that, I'll hand over to Vanessa. Vanessa's going to focus on the GXP inventory management side, and then we'll loop back around to talk about solutions to both in a moment.
Thank you, Andy. It was very interesting to hear some of the common challenges that you've experienced with your forecasting and planning customers. And with that, it's really not too far off from what we've experienced from our customers that come seeking our GXP inventory product. So let's take a look at GXP inventory and what those challenges are. Next slide, please. So probably the biggest pain point or challenge that we see on the GXP inventory front is customers approach us seeking our solution because they don't have an inventory management system of their own. So they're basically relying on their external vendors, their third-party vendors, when they need to access their inventory or they need to run reporting. So they are at the mercy of these third-party vendor systems, them being up and running when they need them. And so another issue that we've heard is onboarding, or there's a training burden that our customers experience, which is given that they're working with multiple vendors, when they onboard new resources, the training is pretty extensive. There's multiple systems involved. There's different ways of retrieving data. There's different types of reporting. So again, it's not having a platform of their own is, in general, is a burden for them. The lack of inventory visibility, of course, is another big one. Fragmented supplies. Our customers have their clinical supplies spread at a global level. And so having to retrieve that data and not having that full visibility within a single source becomes a huge problem for them. The reporting, this is another one as well. The reporting is when it's coming from multiple systems, there's different types of formats of the reporting. It's being retrieved from various different systems, and it's not a clean report of their full inventory. Next slide, please. Along the same lines of that reporting, lot genealogy is another one as well. It becomes very time consuming for them to be able to gain the genealogy of their lots when, again, they're trying to piece bits and pieces of these reports together to be able to gain that full traceability. They work off of a lot of paper-based reporting, Excel spreadsheets, and really trying to find ways to gain that full visibility of their genealogy, even all the way down to their drug substance, becomes a very time consuming. Lot recalls, we know how stressful they can be for our customers, and being able to very quickly and very efficiently respond to a lot recall is critical for our customers. When they don't have a system of their own where they can retrieve that data at the click of a button, it becomes a challenge for them to even meet timelines when they're being audited and they need to, again, gain access to the full inventory, regardless of where their supplies reside. It's a challenge for them. Our system solves these challenges and more, but with this, I'm going to move to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is the second poll that we have in store for you. Again, I will remind you to kindly access using your mobile device by scanning the barcode or accessing using that link that you see right over to the side. And we're interested to hear which of the following inventory management challenges you have experienced.
So Vanessa, as people take this poll and we start to see the results come in, with your experience, I know you've worked with large organizations, smaller organizations as far as implementing inventory management directly into the organizations. What do you see as smaller or larger? Their challenges, do they vary? Is there common problems, or do they have unique challenges between them as far as what you might see here in these three choices that the respondents might have?
I'm not surprised at all, Jason, by what I'm seeing here on the screen. I think this is pretty much what I was expecting. It's very clear that lot genealogy is the biggest issue that our customers are facing. And I think reporting being the second one in line here makes complete sense. So this is pretty common.
Yeah, so being able to trace everything from API down to patient really becomes a challenge with outsourcing to vendors and chasing them down, and of course FDA regulations and the ability to do lot recalls in a phase becomes really challenging, right?
Absolutely, especially when you don't have a system of your own. All right, great. Thank you all on the line for participating in that poll.
No, it's good. It's very insightful.
So thank you, Vanessa. Now that we've spoken about the challenges, both from a forecasting and planning perspective, and then GXP inventory management perspective, we'd just like to spend a bit of time talking about the benefits of our solution, or solutions, really. As Jason presented, we have full end-to-end suite of solutions available, and really talk about how we meet those specific challenges. So it's very interesting to see the input into those polls. with regards to which of these challenges you face at your organizations. I completely echo Vanessa's point that it's good to see what we were anticipating seeing in terms of which challenges are faced the most. And our solutions really are in place to mitigate these things. So next slide, please. Again, I'm going to be focusing on the forecasting and planning side of things, and then Vanessa will speak on the GXP inventory management side of things, because that's our specialities, I would say, internally. So with our forecasting and planning solution, of course, at its core, we're providing that full end-to-end visibility at all BOM levels of your forecasted demand versus your supply. I mentioned when we were talking about the challenges, how tricky it can be when you don't have standardized processes. So that's a big reason to move to a system such as ours. Of course, we would like to say specifically ours for many reasons. Standardizing your processes means that all of your teams, no matter how widespread they are globally, decentralized, as is often the case, myself included, sitting here in my garden, working in the same way, in the same system, following the same processes, reduces those issues that we discussed around people having different approaches to doing things, people having different personal approaches to risk, for example. The visibility is therefore complete. You can see all of your trials in the same system. That's also very key if you have an unfortunate unplanned absence of an employee, especially if it's a longer term absence. If they're working in their own way, in their own old system or their own spreadsheet that perhaps isn't even a template spreadsheet, maybe they've designed their own. No one's saying that they're not very skilled at what they do. They might be a very good supply chain manager and have done wonderful forecasts that are accurate. But if that's how they like to work, doesn't necessarily mean that all of their colleagues will understand it immediately and be able to unpick. So having everything in the same system means that if there is that unexpected absence, you can very quickly see what's happening with the trials. Of course, that removes a big risk of saying, if an individual is responsible for managing a handful of trials and then they're suddenly unavailable, that is a risk to those trials and to those ongoing supplies to our patients. So having that access to the data, having them work in the standard way that everyone works is a huge piece to mitigate those risks. Risks are also mitigated with a standardized approach to overages. So I mentioned before about overages, and I mentioned about individuals having their own particular approaches to risk. That may very well mean that if 2 or 3 colleagues were to forecast for the exact same trial, they would come up with different requirements in terms of the inventory. Of course, as time has passed in our industry, diseases are becoming rarer, IMP is becoming more expensive. We can't simply rely on overages to mitigate our risks. So standardizing that approach such that the organization effectively has oversight and control rather than individuals is not just a risk mitigation piece, but it's also, of course, a cost saving piece. That applies to many of these solutions. When we talk about moving to a digitized system, we're also talking about, from a forecasting and planning perspective, making what we need on time, no more, no less. It also means that you can perform that scenario analysis in a simple, easy to achieve fashion directly in the application. don't need to do anything offline to consider the kind of what ifs that feed into our supply chain and supply planning decisions. The ability to take data inputs directly is there, so our system can integrate with your IRT, preferably our own IRT, of course, but if you do use other IRT vendors, we are absolutely able to integrate the data. So your forecast will always know how many subjects you have, where they are, what treatments they're on, and so on. Your current inventory data can be integrated. The application that Vanessa is presenting to you today from an inventory management perspective, of course, is native to our functional ecosystem, so that data can flow directly into your forecast. But if you use a non-Signant Health inventory management system, we can also work with that source of data. And automation, of course, is a huge piece if we're talking about improving your processes, moving towards a digitized landscape. Those integrations I just discussed, and therefore the ability to automatically aggregate your demands. Specific challenges I spoke about before with regard to demands for multiple trials, programs, perhaps using the same items. If you've got pooled primary, bulk drug product, even component use, by having all of these trials in the same forecasting and planning tool, it will do those aggregations for you. You will be able to view your demands per trial, per program, but also what is my total demand for this particular item? What's my total inventory for this particular item? And it allows you to make those allocations from your on-hand inventory back out to all of the programs and trials that need it, such that you can have that visibility, but you can also review and respond to changes over time, be that protocol amendments, changes in scope of a particular trial, but also trials not necessarily performing as planned. Of course, trial recruitment doesn't always go exactly as we feel it might. Some trials run slowly, for example, but being able to view those inventory allocations for all of the trials that use a particular item in the same tool gives you that opportunity to make adjustments, reallocate so that you're not wasting inventory, change your supply plans to respond to those particular occurrences. Next slide, please. So with that, again, thank you for your time. I'll hand back to Vanessa to talk you through our GXP inventory application.
Thank you, Andy. Before I do that, though, I would like to give you some insight into the 3 different GXP models we offer. Historically, we typically worked with enterprise level customers. And then we realized that we needed to come up with a solution so that some of the smaller biotechs or smaller organizations could also take advantage of our solution. And for that reason, we came up with GXP Inventory Essential and Essential Plus. So these 2 models are pre-configured solutions. So what that means is that we have gone through an extensive internal assessment of the use cases of some of the smaller organizations based on industry standards. And we have crafted the configuration of the system in a way that we can simply deliver a pre-configured system, which means that we're eliminating a lot of the decision making that our customers really need to do during the implementation process. So of course, that means shorter timelines from the start of the implementation to go live. So the GXP Inventory Essential model, pre-configured, it is non-integrated. It is suitable for customers that have 1 or 2 trials. They're really just starting out. We see this model as this is the first step in these customers digitalizing their processes, having a system of their own, for them to have that visibility of their fragmented inventory. We also have GXP Inventory Essential Plus, which is they get all of the benefits from the Essential model, but with the additional visibility of site level distribution. So in this model, we offer it as a pre-configured solution as well, but we offer the ability to integrate with customers that have that use specific distribution vendors, IRT vendors, and also integrate GXP inventory with our forecasting and planning products. This, again, as I mentioned, gives customers a little more insight into their supplies down to the distribution, to site level distribution. And this is also a model which is quite suitable for customers that have about a handful of trials. Enterprise, for our much larger customers that have pretty large volumes of clinical trials. This particular model allows our customers to really tailor the system as per that customer's intended use. So they have the ability to define their workflows in the system. We offer a very nice list of integrations. So in the enterprise model is where these customers can pick and choose which integrations they want. If they have a CTMS system already in place, they can leverage that interface. We also offer materials interface and many other ones that they can choose from. Okay. So now that I've given you a little bit of insight into the three models for GXP inventory, let's talk about the benefits. Next slide, please. So customers that get their hands on our product are going to notice that they're going to have immediate visibility of their supplies. The single source means that they can take various different functional areas, their clinical trial managers, their quality teams, perhaps their logistic resources, and have everyone work on a single platform and a single source. They'll also see that their fragmented inventory is quite nicely laid out within the system, full visibility, full access of their supplies, finished good supplies, all the way down to drug substance, drug product. The system is flexible in that it gives you the ability to truly determine how far down you want to track your inventory. Again, we know how critical it is for our customers to continue to have these integrations in place with both their internal and external systems. So like I mentioned, we have quite a list of integrations that we offer that customers can take advantage of. Reports, that was one of the biggest pain points that our GXP inventory customers have raised to us in the past. We offer a catalog of 13 standard reports that range from inventory, lot genealogy, lot recall, distribution reporting, and we also have some administrative reports as well. We've then taken that catalog and we've sort of molded it in a way that we could retrieve from those 13 reports to allow the essential customers to also take advantage of standard reports that are applicable to each of the Essential and Essential Plus models. With this reporting that we offer, we've seen our customers drastically increase their response time when it comes to a lot recall or when they're being audited, to be able to gain direct access to their inventory and quickly retrieve the information they need. I mentioned different functional areas. When you have everybody working within GXP inventory, of course, you're going to improve compliance and streamline processes. You're going to get away from the paper, get away from the emails when you need QA to release a lot, or you need material transferred from one depot to another within the system. All of those types of activities occur. And of course, increasing your efficiency, which is incredibly important, being able to have direct visibility of your inventory within GXP inventory. So with that, that covers the benefits. I did cover the 3 models in the previous slide. So if anybody on the line is interested to hear more about any of the 3 GXP inventory models I covered, please feel free to drop your contact information, and we will be happy to connect you with our commercial team. Thank you. Over to you, Jason.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's really great to see how these systems connect and interact. It's really great graphic and what required information they share and how that cycle really works. So great graphic there. I'd like to take a moment and really direct your attention to some valuable resources you'll see in your chat. If you click on that on the bottom of your screen, we have available to support your work in clinical supply chain management. Here on your screen, you'll see example case studies that our team have published. These case studies address some of the common challenges in clinical trials and really highlight the innovative solutions that we've implemented to overcome them. These are just samples, a bit small on the screen. So if you'd like to explore these further, I encourage you to visit our website, signanthealth.com. Very simply, under the resources tab, you'll find really a wealth of information, including blogs where you can subscribe and stay updated. Really great feature, search by keyword. You can do things there, search by forecasting and come up with all the information you need, and find and search topics of interest. You'll also find case studies. You can download PDFs, dive into the real world applications of our solutions. Event listings for upcoming in-person events, such as our conferences or webinars like this one, even product brochures and other content. So materials can be located by therapeutic area or other categories that are relevant to your work, whichever stage of clinical supply chain that you are focused on. So you'll find valuable information on that site and also here in this. So with that being said, on the next slide, we have reached the Q&A portion of our agenda. So let's take a look at what questions we have that's been submitted and see what we can answer together. So first, Vanessa, I think there's one might be of interest to you. So, and also Andy, one as well. So first one up, are there audit trails or reporting features to assist with regulatory inspections? Vanessa, I think that one really is of most interest to the inventory system. If you could tackle that one.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason. Yes, the simple answer is yes. We do have a full audit trail, which captures the user, the date, the time, the action has been performed within the system. And we do typically see when customers are audited, this is a heavily used module.
Excellent, excellent. Moving on here. Andy, I think this one would be great for the forecasting area. Can the platform, assuming platform meaning forecasting and planning, adapt to mid-trial changes? We know those can be challenging, such as unanticipated enrollment spikes or site expansions. Can you kind of help us out there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I think that's one of the challenges of forecasting as a whole, not just of any particular forecasting process you use. Trials change. We, of course, have functionality to make those changes once you know they're happening. You can update your trial details. You can make changes to your recruitment projections. If your protocol is changing and you need to add cohorts, treatments, update your dosing, absolutely can do all of those things. The challenge really, I'd say, is with the unknowns, and that's where your sort of scenario analysis comes in. The application allows for unlimited scenarios to be created. You can push those right the way through the forecasting functionality, all the way through to a supply plan. So you can, deal with those what if scenarios. If my trial recruitment was to be much quicker than expected, would I be able to produce another batch in time? You know, you can look at that versus your depot lead times, your production lead times for all of the different pack types you need. Do I have inventory of my various components to issue to these new batches if my trial was to suddenly speed up? So it's a combination of, yes, we can handle changes as they happen, but we can also provide functionality to prepare for changes that may happen, so you can satisfy yourself that if these potentials came into be, you'd be in a safe position versus your supply plans, your inventory of components, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that response, Andy. You know, unexpected changes, of course, always are things that we need to deal with when it comes to those changes, and how we deal with forecasts and how we replan as we go. Let's take a look at the questions here. Next one up is what integrations, meaning some system integrations, are available with your inventory enterprise system?
Yeah.
So Vanessa, could you help share with what we've got, which systems connect, and a little bit about them maybe?
Yep, sure, Jason. We have quite a few integrations, and as I mentioned, they're offered for customers to connect GXP inventory with any internal systems they may have, such as a CTMS system or any system that's housing, let's say, maybe bulk drug substance or drug product, to be able to bring that data into GXP inventory. We also offer several integrations with external vendors, distribution vendors, and IRT vendors. Third-party manufacturing is another one. So we would be more than happy to provide more insight into the integrations. Again, please feel free to drop your name and the organization, your contact information in our chat, and we can connect you to our commercial resources.
Yeah,
I'll just
fantastic.
interject as well to say I mentioned a little bit about integrations when we were talking about the forecasting and planning solution, but that has the interfaces as well with regard to data in from IRT, data in from your inventory management solution, hopefully our inventory management solution, and then data back out at the other end in terms of what actually is our supply plan. Let's project those required manufacturing batches to the next step, which again can be internal to our GXP inventory management system, but can also interface with other systems as required.
Yeah, getting those actual
Sorry.
subject values into the forecasting plan can be quite valuable, as mentioned, Andy, because that's the best way to get those projected inventory kits by location and where you're going to need them.
So
IRT was another one, Andy, you just mentioned. We also have Signant offers an RTSM, and we have customers that have integrations between our Signant IRT system and GXP inventory, and it works quite seamlessly.
Great. Looking to our question listing here. Another one, what kind of onboarding and training does Signant Health provide for new users with your systems? Andy, if you could take a shot at that one.
Picking on me for that one, sure. So a big part of my role and Vanessa's role is the implementation phase for new customers. So we would take the customer's core team through a process, firstly of full training on the application, every feature function from an end user perspective, but also they are cloud-based SaaS applications as described, but they do have various configurable elements. So we would go through that process as well to explain, train, and guide to reach decisions on how the tools need to be configured to best suit their particular customer organization. And then from an end user training perspective, it really depends on the size of the customer and the scope of the project. So in sort of high level terms, if we're working with a large enterprise, medium size to large enterprise customer. Typically, we would work with a sort of super user group as we go through that implementation phase I mentioned, and then would assist with the design of end user training to then be rolled out internally by our customer, sort of a train the trainer kind of vibe. But if it were a smaller customer, sort of biotech type, which we're absolutely able to serve as well, that tends to be more, the whole team would be involved in that implementation phase and would therefore receive the full training directly from ourselves. Which solution is best fit for which customer is just absolutely something we would discuss during the contracting and project planning phase to land on the best solution.
Another thing to add to that, Andy, is we have some pretty robust standard training material that we also offer during these training workshops.
Yeah,
so we've broken down on a per module basis, because we know that access into our system is really all based on the user role. Each of those roles have been defined. If you're an enterprise customer, by the customer. For the essential models, we have a subset of user roles, but ultimately, we know that each of these roles, their access into the system is limited based on their responsibilities. So we've broken down our training material, our standard training material, to be module based. And what we do is we use that during our training, but we also deliver that to the customer as a part of the implementation. And we've seen customers take that material and use it for internal purposes as well, for drafting SOPs or providing additional internal training to the users prior to go live. So really nice content we deliver as a part of the implementation.
Great, thanks for that, Vanessa. Any other closing remarks? So on behalf of my colleagues here, we thank you for your time. Next slide. So if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out. My email is here on the screen, and you will find a copy of this webinar and more on our website. And we wish you a good day ahead. And thank you so much for joining.
Thanks all for your time and questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you.